Welcome to Sleepless Historia. If you enjoy the gentle exploration of the past, please consider liking and subscribing. And do remember to turn on loop, so this soothing journey can repeat. Now, let us settle into our surroundings. Dim the lights around you. Take a deep breath in, and then slowly let it out. Adjust your pillow and blanket to find that perfect comfort. Let your shoulders relax, feeling the weight of the day gently lift away. Now, today, we will embark on a rather peculiar exploration into the world of medieval guild membership application forms. Yes, a topic that may seem mundane, yet holds layers of intricate detail. The process of joining a guild in the Middle Ages was not simply a matter of expressing interest. It was a rigorous undertaking, filled with meticulous procedures and a considerable amount of paperwork. Picture, if you will, the dimly lit rooms where aspiring members would sit. They would gather their quills, ink, and a stack of parchment, preparing to navigate a labyrinth of applications. Each form required careful attention. Little by little, they would fill in their particulars, documenting their qualifications and experience. This process was not swift. It was slow and methodical, a rhythm of writing, pausing, and thinking. The forms would often include detailed descriptions of one's tools, techniques, and even the hours spent mastering a craft. Each line on the page, each stroke of the quill had purpose. Dear and then the aspiring members would often find themselves revisiting their applications, adjusting, revising, and adding more parchment, until it felt just right. The paperwork could sometimes feel overwhelming, a source of anxiety, laden with the fear of rejection. Yet, amidst this tediousness, there was a sense of pride in crafting the perfect application, a sense of belonging that they longed for. Slowly and gently, we will delve deeper into these applications, exploring the nuances of requirements, etiquette, and expectations. So, let your mind rest as we drift into the calm and detailed world of medieval guild membership applications. As the aspiring guild members continue to engage with their applications, they often turn to their tools, the instruments of their trade. Each tool was essential. Each tool had a story. A blacksmith, for instance, might possess a hammer weighing approximately 2 pounds, its handle crafted from sturdy ash, polished to a smooth finish. This hammer, with its well-worn head, would serve not only as an instrument of creation, but also as a symbol of dedication. The guild application would ask for details of such tools, requiring precise measurements. The applicant would need to note the length of the hammer's handle, typically around 12 to 14 inches, and describe the method of crafting it. This attention to detail was crucial, for each guild had its standards. A tailor, on the other hand, would mention their shears, perhaps measuring 8 inches in length, the blades sharp and gleaming, ready to cut fabric with precision. Every detail inscribed upon the parchment, the applicants would find a calming rhythm, a soothing pattern to their work. As they wrote, they could take a moment to breathe deeply. Inhale and exhale. The act of writing proved to be not just a requirement, but a form of meditation, a moment to focus on their skills and their identity. They would also detail their techniques, often describing the processes in which they had mastered their crafts. A potter might write about the clay they used, sourced from local riverbanks, and the way it felt in their hands, malleable, and soothing. They would mention the kiln, its temperature reaching around 1200 degrees Fahrenheit, where the pots transformed from mere clay into sturdy vessels. Describing the interplay of heat and time, they would note how long they fired their wares, perhaps for 8 to 10 hours, to achieve the desired results. Such meticulousness was necessary, for guilds prided themselves on quality. The applications often required aspiring members to include their years of experience. A carpenter might write about their apprenticeship, which commonly lasted for about 7 years. This period was filled not just with learning, but with a sense of belonging, a gradual acceptance into a community of craftsmen. They would detail the projects they worked on, noting the dimensions of the beams they had cut, often measuring 2 by 4 inches or 4 by 4 inches, the precise sizes necessary for building sturdy structures. As the applicants wrote, they considered the etiquette involved in the application process. It was encouraged to present their applications in a neat and orderly fashion. The use of ink was important too. They would select dark, rich ink made from carbon black, ideally suited for permanence, ensuring that their words would not fade over time. The quill, with its pointed nib, would need to be dipped carefully, allowing just the right amount of ink to flow. As they wrote, applicants would also reflect on the costs associated with their crafts, noting not only the prices of materials, but also the time and effort involved in creating their goods. A baker might include the cost of flour, approximately 2 shillings per sack, and the time taken to knead dough, which could last from 20 to 30 minutes. Each loaf that emerged from their oven required precision, rising time of about an hour, followed by careful baking at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Slowly and gently, they filled their applications, incorporating the specifics, the numbers, the details that would speak to their expertise. The act of recording these details became a soothing repetition, a comforting cadence that helped ease the weight of their worries. Well, let's say, once the application was nearly complete, many applicants would seek the guidance of a mentor, a respected member of the guild. This could take several days, as the mentor would review the application with a discerning eye, looking for clarity and completeness. They would suggest revisions, perhaps advising the inclusion of more precise measurements or clearer descriptions of techniques. The aspiring members would listen intently, taking notes on separate pieces of parchment, ready to revise their submissions. Following this review, there was often a waiting period. It could last anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. During this time, the applicants might work on their crafts, perfecting their skills, ensuring they remained prepared for the day they would finally receive news. They might even engage in discussions with fellow craftsmen, sharing insights and encouraging one another in their journeys. This camaraderie was deeply rooted in the idea that every aspiring member was part of a larger community, bound by the common goal of craftsmanship and artistry. As the applicants waited, they often reflected on the importance of patience. The journey to guild membership was not a race, but rather a slow unfolding. They learned to embrace the moments of stillness, to find solace in the mundane, and to appreciate the intricate details of their daily routines. Inhale and exhale. Eventually the day would come when the parchment would be submitted. The guild's official would receive it, often with a slight bow of acknowledgement. They would take the application into a well-lit chamber lined with shelves filled with completed documents, each representing a journey of its own. The official would carefully review the papers, often under the watchful gaze of elder members who valued the integrity and craftsmanship of the guild. Though the process of review was thorough and time-consuming, each application would be scrutinized for adherence to the guild's regulation. There were meetings, discussions, and evaluations, all carried out in a calm and methodical manner. The aspiring members waited, feeling a mix of anticipation and trepidation. And then, little by little, the responses would be dispatched. An acceptance letter might arrive, embellished with a wax seal, indicating the approval of their craftsmanship. Alternatively, a letter of rejection could also come, gently worded, explaining the reasons for the decision. Each applicant would learn to interpret these outcomes, understanding that the journey was as significant as the destination. Now, in this world of medieval guilds, every application was a testament to dedication, a reflection of countless hours spent honing skills. The process of joining a guild was more than filling out forms. It was an intricate dance of commitment and community. Each quill stroke on the parchment resonated with the rhythm of their craft, a soothing reminder of the artistry that lay within. As we continue to explore this world of guild applications, let your thoughts drift into the gentle cadence of history. Breathe in deeply and breathe out slowly. Allow yourself to settle into this calm narrative as we uncover more details about the lives and crafts of those who sought belonging within these guilds. Honestly, as the applicants awaited their responses, they would often engage in quiet preparation, further refining their tools and honing their skills. For each trade, the tools varied, but the routine remained comforting in its predictability. A carpenter would carefully select their chisels, ensuring each blade was sharp and ready for the task ahead. They would arrange their tools on a sturdy workbench, a well-worn surface bearing the marks of countless projects. The sound of wood being planed would fill the air, a rhythmic whisper of craftsmanship. The blacksmith, on the other hand, would stoke the forge, watching the flames dance and flicker in the cool evening light. As the metal heated, they would prepare their anvil, a solid block of iron, waiting patiently for the hammer's strike. Each strike would ring out, echoing through the workshop, a calming melody of creation. The careful measure of each piece of metal, often marked with a simple chalk line, ensured precision in the work ahead. The weaver would sit quietly at their loom, each thread meticulously arranged in anticipation of colorful patterns. The soft sound of the shuttle gliding through the warp and weft became a soothing backdrop, a gentle reminder of the labor involved in crafting fabric. They would count the rows in soft murmurs, a mantra of sorts, as the fabric began to take shape slowly and gently. Each stitch, a testament to the hours spent in focused tranquility. Storage of materials was also a key aspect of these trades. The carpenter would often keep their wood in a dry, cool place, each piece labeled according to its dimensions and intended use. Lengths of oak, pine, and cherry would be stacked with care, creating an organized sanctuary of raw potential. The blacksmith would store their metal in a shaded corner, protected from the elements, each ingot awaiting its transformation. In the weaver's studio, skeins of yarn would hang neatly from hooks, organized by color and texture. The prices of materials varied widely, reflecting the season and availability. Each artisan would learn to gauge the market, assessing the best times to purchase supplies. The carpenter might pay 3 pence for a plank of cedar, while the weaver could spend 6 pence for a fine skein of silk. Each transaction was conducted with a sense of respect and consideration, a polite exchange that fostered community bonds. The etiquette surrounding membership in guilds was also steeped in tradition. New members were expected to demonstrate their skills publicly, often in a gathering known as a showing. This event allowed the guild to assess not only the craftsmanship, but also the character of the applicants. A quiet confidence was encouraged, as was humility. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of camaraderie, where seasoned artisans would offer gentle critiques and advice. As applicants prepared for their showings, they would often practice their craft in solitude, focusing their minds and steadying their hands. The process could take days, sometimes weeks, leading up to the event. Each detail was significant. The way a woodworker sanded a surface, the care a blacksmith took when polishing metal, or the precision with which a weaver intertwined threads. All these actions contributed to the applicant's final presentation. On the day of the showing, the guild members would gather in the workshop or hall, a space filled with the scent of fresh wood, heated metal, or dyed fabric. The atmosphere was serene, a blend of anticipation and encouragement. Each applicant would take a moment to breathe deeply, calming their racing thoughts. They might close their eyes for a moment, envisioning the steps they had rehearsed, feeling the rhythm of their craft. As they completed their presentations, the guild members would watch intently, offering nods of approval or thoughtful consideration. The process of evaluation was thorough, often involving a series of questions. What inspired your design? A master might ask gently. How did you choose your materials? The answers required reflection, allowing the applicant to articulate their journey, their passion for their craft. After the presentations, the guild would convene to discuss the candidates. This deliberation could last for hours. The members would gather around a large wooden table, filled with parchment and quills, taking notes on each applicant's performance. The candlelight flickered softly as they shared their observations, weighing the merits of each candidate with great care. Each word exchanged carried the weight of tradition and responsibility. Little by little, decisions were reached. The guild, committed to maintaining high standards, would consider factors such as skill, dedication, and the potential for growth. It was not simply about the present, but also about the future of their craft. A candidate might be accepted, or they could be encouraged to refine their skills further before reapplying. Each outcome was communicated gently, often with a personal touch, ensuring that every applicant felt respected, regardless of the decision. Upon acceptance, the new member would officially enter the guild with a ceremony, often involving the presentation of a guild badge. This small emblem, sewn or crafted with care, signified their commitment and belonging. The badge was worn with pride, a symbol of the skills they had acquired and the community they now joined. In the following weeks, they would be introduced to guild practices, learning the history, the values, and the expectations of their new family. Each guild had its own unique customs. Some required new members to participate in a ceremonial feast, where they would sit among seasoned artisans, sharing stories and laughter. Others might ask their new members to assist in teaching younger apprentices, reinforcing the cycle of learning and growth within the community. As the days turned into weeks, the new member would settle into their role within the guild, their daily routines becoming a steady rhythm. Each morning would begin with a careful selection of tools, followed by hours spent perfecting their craft. The soft sound of chiseling, the gentle clinking of metal, or the rhythmic sound of weaving would fill their days. In this world of guild membership, every detail mattered. The tools, the materials, the etiquette. They formed the fabric of daily life, a tapestry woven with care and intention. Each moment spent preparing, each breath taken in quiet anticipation, contributed to the larger narrative of skill, community, and belonging. So take a moment now, as we reflect on these gentle rhythms of history. Let your body relax, release any tension in your shoulders, and settle deeper into your space. Feel the soothing cadence of the past wrap around you, like a warm blanket, inviting you to drift off into a peaceful slumber. And as you relax, allow the images of craftsmen and their dedicated routines to fill your mind, slowly and gently, inviting you to a restful state. As the craftsmen settled into their routine, each day unfolded with a soothing predictability. The sun would rise, casting soft light across the workshop. The first task was to gather tools, each selected with care. The tools were often made of wood, metal, or stone, each possessing its own unique weight and texture. A chisel might be chosen for its sharp edge, while a hammer could be selected for its comforting heft. Oh, with tools in hand, the craftsman would prepare their workspace. Each instrument had its designated spot on a polished wooden bench. The bench itself, perhaps made from sturdy oak, bore the marks of countless hours of labor, each scratch and dent telling a story of past endeavors. The tools would be arranged in an order that felt right, hammers beside nails and chisels near blocks of wood. This careful arrangement allowed for a seamless flow of work, encouraging the mind to focus on the task at hand. Next came the selection of materials. The craftsman would open a storage chest, perhaps carved with intricate designs, revealing a trove of possibilities. There might be sheets of thin parchment, bolts of linen, or sturdy planks of timber. Each material was chosen not only for its quality, but also for its suitability to the day's project. The parchment would be measured precisely, perhaps in sheets of 8 by 10 inches, while the wood might be cut into lengths of 3 or 4 feet. As the day progressed, the craftsman would engage in a series of repetitive motions, each action deliberate and intentional. They would begin by marking the material with a soft pencil, a tool that left faint lines on the surface. The lines would guide the next steps, ensuring accuracy in every cut and every stitch. There was an order to the work, a rhythm that echoed the heartbeat of the guild itself. For the weaver, the process was slightly different, yet equally meticulous. They would begin by selecting threads, perhaps dyed in vibrant colors. These threads were stored in wooden spools, neatly arranged by hue. The weaver would unwind a length of thread, measuring it against a ruler, ensuring it was exactly 12 inches long before cutting. Each spool would be labeled, perhaps with a small piece of parchment tied around it with twine. This labeling was essential, as it allowed the weaver to recall the origin of each thread. Was it spun from cotton or wool? Did it come from a local supplier, or perhaps a distant market? The answers to these questions were woven into the very fabric of the guild's identity. As tools and materials came together, there was a necessary etiquette that governed the interactions within the guild. Members would greet one another with a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement of shared purpose. They would speak softly, offering assistance or advice without interrupting the flow of work. This gentleness created an atmosphere of trust and respect, where each individual's contribution was valued. The daily schedule was structured yet flexible, allowing for the natural ebb and flow of creativity. Mornings were dedicated to the most intricate tasks, when minds were fresh and hands steady. Afternoons might be reserved for simpler, repetitive work, with conversations flowing as easily as the tasks at hand. Breaks were woven into the day, allowing members to step outside, breathe in the fresh air, and enjoy a simple meal. Perhaps they would gather around a wooden table, sharing slices of bread and cheese, accompanied by a warm cup of herbal tea. These moments of connection enriched the experience of guild life, reinforcing the bonds that held the community together. In the afternoons, after the meal, the atmosphere would settle into a gentle hum of activity. The sound of tools met the soft rustling of materials. Patterns would emerge as the craftsman or craftswoman focused on their work, lost in the rhythm of their creation. For the carpenter, the sound of saws cutting through wood became a soothing backdrop, a melody of productivity. A skilled blacksmith would hear the soft clinking of metal against metal, the rhythmic pounding of a hammer on an anvil. Each strike was a note in a symphony of creation, echoing through the workshop, signaling progress. Time would slip by gently, measured not in hours, but in the completion of tasks. Each completed project would be marked with a sense of accomplishment, a testament to the dedication of the craftsman. The guild would come alive as members shared their work, admiring the craftsmanship and offering constructive feedback. As the day wound to a close, the tools would be carefully cleaned and returned to their resting places. A soft cloth would be used to wipe away dust and residue, ensuring that each instrument was ready for the next day's tasks. This final ritual brought a sense of closure, a moment to reflect on the day's achievements. And so, the craftsmen would gather their belongings, collecting any leftover materials, perhaps wrapping them in a cloth to take home. They might pause to admire their handiwork, a small project gleaming in the fading light, ready to be presented at the next guild meeting. The journey of guild life was marked by these small but significant moments. Each step, each decision, contributed to a larger tapestry of community and craftsmanship. The paperwork, the applications, the formalities, all served as stepping stones to a deeper understanding of the craft and a connection to others who shared the same passion. As you listen, allow yourself to settle deeper into your space. Feel the weight of your body and let go of any remaining tension. Breathe slowly and gently, in and out, as you envision the quiet hum of the workshop, the soft sounds of tools and materials, weaving together the rich tapestry of guild life. Each breath brings you closer to a state of peaceful relaxation, as the rhythms of history envelop you, inviting you to drift away into a serene slumber. Service. Under the tame. Solo. Hey. As the craftsmen prepared for the guild meeting, a careful selection of tools was essential. Each tool had its own designated place within the workshop. Hammers hung neatly on hooks, while chisels rested on a soft cloth to avoid dulling their edges. Measuring tapes, always coiled and ready to use, were placed carefully within easy reach. This organized approach ensured that each task could begin without delay. The craftsmen would often begin by selecting their preferred wood. A fine piece of oak, sturdy and resilient, might be measured at precisely 2 feet long and 6 inches wide. The soft grain of the wood whispered promises of strength, beckoning the craftsman to transform it into something remarkable. Each measurement taken was deliberate, with a soft pencil marking the wood, allowing for adjustments along the way. The craftsmen would take their time, ensuring accuracy, as each cut would dictate the final shape of the project. Wow. Once the wood was prepared, the next step involved gathering the appropriate tools for the task at hand. The smoothness of the saw, as it glided through the wood, was both a pleasure and a necessity. The craftsman would hold the saw at a gentle angle, allowing the blade to do the work. Each cut took time, a slow and steady rhythm, echoing in the workshop. As they worked, the sound of the saw became a calming backdrop, a reminder of the connection between the craftsman and their craft. With the pieces cut to size, the craftsman would begin the process of sanding. Sandpaper, available in various grits, was selected based on the desired finish. A coarse grit might be used initially, followed by progressively finer grits. Each stroke of sandpaper across the wood was methodical, creating a gentle hum that filled the space. The grains of dust caught the light as they floated through the air, a soft reminder of the transformation occurring within the workshop. The next phase often involved assembly. Here, the craftsman would reach for their trusty wood glue, a simple yet effective adhesive that would bind the pieces together. A small, precise bead of glue would be applied along the edges, followed by careful alignment of the components. Patience was key, as the glue required time to set. During this waiting period, the craftsman might take a moment to reflect, perhaps jotting down notes in a small ledger, recording the day's progress, or even planning future projects. As the assembly set, the craftsman would gather clamps, ensuring everything remained secure as the glue dried. Each clamp, a sturdy ally, was placed meticulously around the project, tightening just enough to hold the pieces together without exerting too much pressure. This delicate balance was crucial, as too much force could cause the wood to crack. Time was taken to ensure each clamp was adjusted properly, a gentle twist of the wrist, slow and deliberate. With the assembly complete, the craftsmen turned their attention to the finishing touches. Stains and varnishes, often stored in labeled jars, were carefully chosen to enhance the wood's natural beauty. A soft brush was dipped into the chosen stain, and the craftsman began to apply it with tender strokes. The scent of the wood mingled with the aroma of the stain, creating an atmosphere of warmth and creativity within the workshop. Each brushstroke was slow and purposeful, allowing the stain to seep into the wood, accentuating its grain. Meanwhile, the guild had its own rhythm. Meetings were held regularly, often on a Wednesday evening after the day's work was done. Craftsmen would gather in the main hall, a space filled with the collective energy of shared knowledge. The atmosphere was calm, with the soft glow of candles flickering against the walls. Each craftsman would take their place, ready to present their work, to share insights, and to discuss the art of their trade. Wow. As the craftsmen prepared for the next meeting, they would carefully wrap their completed project. Soft cloths were chosen to protect the work, wrapping it gently to avoid scratches or dents. The act of wrapping became a comforting ritual, a way to honor the time and effort invested in the creation. Each fold in the cloth was deliberate, ensuring a snug fit, a protective embrace for the crafted piece. When it came time to transport the project to the guild meeting, the craftsman would select a sturdy basket. The basket, woven with care, provided a safe haven for the finished work. Each item was placed within softly, ensuring that nothing would jostle during the journey. The craftsman would carry the basket with both hands, feeling the weight of their effort, a tangible reminder of their dedication. Upon arriving at the guild hall, the craftsman would take a moment to breathe deeply. The air was thick with anticipation and the shared camaraderie of fellow artisans. Each craftsman greeted one another with a nod or a gentle smile, acknowledging the shared journey of craftsmanship. The atmosphere was filled with soft murmurs, the sounds of tools being discussed, techniques being shared, and stories of toil and triumph echoing against the walls. As they settled into the meeting, the craftsmen would take a seat, carefully placing their basket beside them. The gentle clatter of tools and materials being unpacked created a soothing rhythm, lulling each member into a state of focus. The guildmaster, a figure of wisdom and patience, would begin the meeting, guiding the conversation with a steady voice. Presentations followed a familiar structure. Each craftsman would take turns discussing their project. They described the materials used, the inspiration behind their creation, and the challenges faced along the way. Craftsmen listened attentively, nodding in understanding, their faces reflecting the warmth of shared experience. Questions flowed gently, fostering an environment of learning and support. As the evening progressed, discussions would often turn to the practicalities of guild membership. The paperwork required to join the guild could be extensive, a fact acknowledged by all. Applications often included detailed accounts of one's craft, a list of tools possessed, and references from established members. Each document was essential, a step toward belonging to this cherished community. The craftsmen would recall their own experience of filling out those forms. The ink, carefully applied with a steady hand, created a neat and legible format. Personal details, including the history of their craft, were meticulously noted. Hours spent in the workshop, projects completed. Each piece of information was vital, ensuring their application would be well received. Aid. Once submitted, there was a waiting period. During this time, the craftsmen remained engaged in their work, continuing to refine their skills. Each day was filled with the rhythms of creation, allowing them to immerse themselves in the process, knowing that the guild awaited their acceptance. The anticipation was often accompanied by a sense of hope, a gentle reminder that each step taken was towards a greater purpose. As the days passed, the craftsmen would find comfort in routine, each moment spent in the workshop contributing to their growth. The sound of tools, the feel of wood beneath their fingers, created a sanctuary of calm. Eventually, the notification would arrive, often delivered in the form of a neatly folded parchment, sealed with a warm wax emblem. The craftsman would feel a flutter of excitement mixed with trepidation. As they opened the parchment, a sense of relief washed over them, knowing they had taken the necessary steps to become part of something larger. Oh, in that moment, the craftsman would reflect on the journey, from the initial application to the joyous acceptance. Each detail, each form filled out, was a thread woven into the fabric of their identity as a member of the guild. The process may have been tedious, but it was also filled with purpose, a pathway to connection and shared passion. And so, as the meeting drew to a close, the craftsmen would pack their belongings once more, feeling a sense of accomplishment. They would step out into the cool night air, the stars twinkling above, and carry with them the knowledge that they were part of a rich tapestry of craftsmanship, a community that thrived on dedication, patience, and artistry. Hey, allow yourself to linger in this feeling of connection, of shared endeavor. Breathe gently, feeling the calm wash over you, as you imagine the world of craftsmen, their tools, their projects, and the simple yet profound joy of creating together. Each breath brings you deeper into relaxation, as you drift into tranquility, slowly and gently. As the craftsmen would leave the guild meeting, their mind would wander to the tools of their trade. Each tool held a story, a legacy of craftsmanship passed down through generations. The chisels, for example, were meticulously designed. The handles were often made from sturdy hardwood, polished to a warm sheen. Each chisel had a specific width, measured in millimeters, ensuring precision in every cut. The craftsman would gently stroke the handle, feeling the texture, the craftsmanship that went into it. Chisels would be stored carefully, each in its own dedicated space within the workshop. The tools would hang on a wall, arranged by size and purpose. This organization was crucial. It allowed for a smooth workflow, eliminating the time wasted searching for a particular tool. The craftsman understood the importance of this arrangement, having spent hours perfecting the layout, ensuring that every tool had its place, each within arm's reach. Wooden mallets, heavy and solid, were also essential. The craftsman would choose one that felt just right in their hand, balanced and comfortable. It would be used to strike the chisels, the rhythmic thud echoing softly in the workshop. The mallet's weight was often measured in ounces, ensuring it was neither too heavy nor too light for the delicate work required. This balance was key to achieving the intricate designs that the guild was known for. The workbench, a sturdy piece of furniture, would be cluttered yet organized. It would be covered with shavings, remnants of the day's labor. A sharp plane lay ready, its blade honed to perfection, reflecting the dim light of the workshop. Each plane was selected based on the type of wood being worked on. The craftsman would know that softer woods required different techniques than harder ones, a lesson learned over years of practice. Tools were not the only aspect of the craftsman's daily routine. Materials, sourced from local suppliers, were essential too. The wood itself varied greatly from oak to pine, each type bringing its own characteristics. The price of these materials fluctuated, often dependent on availability and season. The craftsman would keep a ledger, meticulously noting down the costs, calculating the budget for each project. This attention to detail ensured that they could plan their work effectively, allocating resources wisely. When selecting wood, the craftsman would inspect each piece carefully. They would look for knots, grain patterns, and any imperfections. Each board would be measured with a tape measure, marked with a pencil to ensure accuracy in cutting. The measurements would often be in inches, as precision was paramount. A single miscalculation could lead to wasted material, a cost that was keenly felt. Once the materials were chosen, the craftsman would begin the process of transformation. They would set a schedule, a rhythm to the day. Each task would be allotted a specific time. Cutting might take an hour, while sanding could take even longer, depending on the intricacy of the design. This schedule was not rigid, but it provided a framework, allowing creativity to flow within structured boundaries. In the meantime, the craftsman would carefully prepare their workspace. Dust would be swept away, tools cleaned and oiled, ensuring they were ready for use. This ritual was calming, a moment of mindfulness before the work began. The craftsman would breathe deeply, inhaling the scent of freshly cut wood, feeling a sense of peace settle over them. As the day progressed, the craftsman would engage in various techniques, each demanding its own set of skills. Mortise and tenon joints were created with precision, requiring attention to both depth and size. The mortise would be chiseled out with care, ensuring a snug fit for the tenon. This process would often take several hours, each cut deliberate and measured. Slowly and gently, the craftsman would fit the pieces together, using a mallet to tap them into place. The satisfaction of hearing that solid connection, the gentle thud, was rewarding. They would then apply wood glue, carefully spread with a brush, ensuring an even coat. This step was crucial, as it would hold the joint together, providing strength and stability. The drying time for the glue was another aspect to consider. The craftsman would often take this opportunity to clean their workspace further, or perhaps to review their ledger. Each entry was a reminder of the projects undertaken, the skills honed, and the community built through the guild. This ledger was more than just numbers. It was a record of growth, of learning, and of commitment to the craft. As the day turned into evening, the craftsmen would turn their attention to finishing touches. Staining and varnishing the wood required a delicate hand. The craftsman would choose the right finish, considering how it would enhance the wood's natural beauty. They would measure out the stain carefully, ensuring there was enough to cover the project without waste. Applying the stain was a calming process. Each stroke of the brush was methodical, covering the surface evenly. The craftsman would pause frequently to step back, assessing the depth of color, ensuring it was just right. The scent of the stain filled the air, mingling with the aroma of wood and the faintest hint of oil from the tools. Once the stain was applied, the craftsmen would carefully clean their brushes, a necessary step to maintain their tools in good condition. This routine, though mundane, was an important part of the craftsmanship. It showed respect for the tools that enabled their work. Time would pass, and as evening cloaked the workshop in shadows, the craftsmen would reflect on the day's work. Each task, though small, contributed to the larger picture. They would turn off the lanterns one by one, listening to the soft click as each flame was extinguished. The coolness of the night air would greet them as they stepped outside. The world around them would feel quiet and serene. Stars twinkled in the deep blue sky, each one a reminder of the vastness of possibility. The craftsman would breathe in the cool, crisp air, feeling a sense of connection to the cosmos above and the community around them. As they walked home, the craftsman would consider the importance of guild membership. It was more than just a collection of paperwork and meetings. It was a bond, a shared effort toward excellence, and a celebration of craftsmanship. Little by little, they had become part of something enduring, a legacy that would continue through their work. Allow yourself to feel this connection, to imagine the craftsmen in their workshop, the gentle sounds of tools at work, the soft glow of lantern light casting a warm ambience. Feel the rhythm of their day, the sequences of tasks, and the quiet satisfaction of creation. Breathe deeply, allowing each breath to carry you deeper into relaxation, slowly and gently. Now, as the craftsmen settled into their routine, they would begin each day with a gentle stretch, the muscles in their arms and back loosening in preparation for the tasks ahead. A soft smile would curve their lips as they opened the door to their workshop, the familiar scents of wood shavings and leather welcoming them like an old friend. The first order of the day would be to gather their tools, each one possessing a unique purpose, each one carefully placed in its designated spot. The chisels, with their gleaming edges, would rest in a wooden holder, organized by size. The smallest chisel, a delicate tool measuring just a few inches in length, was perfect for fine details. The larger chisels, on the other hand, would be used for deeper cuts, their sturdy handles fitting comfortably in the craftsman's hand. Next, they would turn to the measuring tools. A wooden ruler, worn smooth from years of use, lay on the workbench. Each inch was clearly marked, indicating precise measurements that would ensure the accuracy of their work. The craftsman would take a deep breath, inhaling the faint scent of varnish that lingered in the air. They would reach for the ruler, allowing their fingers to glide over its surface, feeling the familiar grooves. Now, Nelly, once the tools were gathered, the craftsman would select their materials. For this day's project, they had chosen a rich, dark oak, its grains swirling beautifully, promising strength and durability. They would inspect each plank, ensuring it met the standards required for guild membership, the quality that would reflect not only their skill, but also the standards set by the guild itself. With the materials chosen, the craftsmen would begin the meticulous process of preparing their workspace. They would clear the bench of any stray bits of wood and dust, creating an orderly environment that would allow for focus and precision. Each tool would be placed within easy reach, a harmony of order that would aid them in their endeavors. Beneath the workbench, a small chest would hold various supplies, sandpaper, nails, and glue, each carefully labeled. The craftsman would take a moment to ensure that everything was stocked and organized. They would check the sandpaper grits, laying out a selection from coarse to fine. Ready for the work ahead. As the morning sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the workshop, the craftsmen would begin their first task. They would take the ruler and, with gentle precision, measure the oak plank. The sound of the pencil scratching against the wood would resonate softly, marking the lines that would guide their cuts. Each measurement would be taken with care, ensuring that the dimensions met the specifications laid out in the guild's standards. The craftsman would pause, reflecting on the importance of these measurements, the bond between precise work and the honor of guild membership. Little by little, they would draw each line, feeling the rhythm of creation pulse around them. After marking the wood, the craftsman would reach for the saw. This tool, a finely crafted instrument with a polished blade, would require steady hands. They would position the plank securely in the vise, adjusting the grip until it held firmly. The saw would glide through the wood, the gentle sound of cutting filling the air, a soothing melody of craftsmanship. Once the pieces were cut, the craftsman would begin the sanding process. They would switch between grits, starting with the coarse to eliminate any rough edges, and then moving to the finer paper for a smooth finish. Each stroke would be methodical, a slow and gentle rhythm that would transform the oak from a raw material into a polished surface. As they worked, the craftsmen would take care to clean their workspace, brushing away sawdust with a soft cloth, ensuring that no remnants would interfere with the final product. They would take a moment to step back and appreciate the progress, the beauty of the wood emerging with each stroke of the sandpaper. Following the sanding, the craftsmen would prepare for the next step, assembling the pieces. They would reach for the glue, a thick substance that would bond the wood together with strength. Each joint would be coated carefully, the adhesive working its magic to create a seamless connection. As they pressed the pieces together, they would hold them firmly, feeling the warmth of the wood against their hands. At this point, the craftsman might recall the application process to join the guild, a memory tinged with the bittersweet pang of paperwork and patience. The forms they had filled out required diligence and detail, asking for information about their craft, their tools, and their dedication to quality. They had been asked to present samples of their work, each piece a testament to their skill. They would remember the day they submitted their application, feeling a sense of anticipation mixed with anxiety. The parchment they handed over was not merely a collection of words. It was a representation of their journey, their hopes, and the desire to belong. The waiting period felt eternal, a gentle reminder of the careful steps needed to ensure acceptance. Returning to their current task, the craftsmen would ensure that the glued joints were aligned perfectly. They would use clamps to hold everything in place, waiting patiently as the glue dried, the clock ticking softly in the background, a reminder of time passing in a world of creation. Ugh. Once the glue had set, the craftsman would move on to the finishing touches. They would prepare the varnish, a liquid that would enhance the wood's natural beauty and protect it for years to come. They would apply a thin coat with a brush, the bristles gliding smoothly over the surface, leaving a glossy sheen in their wake. Each stroke would be deliberate, a soft caress of the wood. The varnish would soak in, revealing the intricate grains beneath. As they worked, they would remind themselves of the importance of patience and precision, attributes that the guild valued deeply. Little by little, the project would transform, becoming more than just an object. It would embody the craftsmanship that tied them to their community. With each task completed, the craftsman would feel a sense of satisfaction wash over them. The workshop would be filled with the gentle sounds of creation, the soft swish of the brush, the quiet click of tools being placed back into their rightful spots. The day would continue like this, a rhythm of labor and love, infused with the essence of guild membership. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the windows, the craftsman would reflect on the journey of joining the guild. It had not been easy, but each step, each form filled out, each piece crafted, had led them to this moment. They had become part of something greater, a tapestry of artisans dedicated to their craft. And so, they would breathe deeply, inhaling the scent of fresh varnish and wood, feeling the weight of their tools in their hands. Each breath would carry them deeper into relaxation, slowly and gently. I saw 15, 1 day. As their thoughts drifted back to the guild application, there was much to consider. Each guild had its own specific requirements, and these requirements often extended to the application forms themselves. The parchment was thick, the ink dark. Every detail needed careful attention. The joining process was, in essence, an exercise in patience, an invitation to slow down and focus on the minutiae of daily life. First, the applicant would gather the necessary tools. A quill, dipped in ink, would glide smoothly across the surface of the parchment. The quill's feathered end would offer a soft resistance, creating a satisfying rhythm as it transformed thoughts into words. The ink, a rich shade of black, would pool slightly at the tip, waiting to be released in careful strokes. And as the applicant began to write, they would remember to breathe slowly, inhaling the faint scent of the ink, grounding themselves in the moment. The first section of the application often required personal information. Name, age, and place of residence were standard queries. Each answer needed to be precise. The applicant would take their time, feeling the weight of their name as it flowed from the quill. There was an art to it, a delicate balance between speed and accuracy. After each line, they would pause, reflecting on the significance of their words, reminding themselves that these details were the foundation of their journey into guild membership. But next, applicants would usually encounter a series of questions related to their craft. They would describe the tools they used and the materials they preferred. A carpenter might list their saws, chisels, and planes, each tool having its own story, each one a companion in their daily labor. The list would often include measurements as well, noting the lengths of timber and the dimensions of projects completed. This was not merely information. It was a testament to their skills, their dedication, and their place within the community of craftsmen. As they wrote, they might pause to recall the cost of their tools. The price of a good saw could vary significantly, perhaps ranging from 5 to 20 shillings, depending on its quality and craftsmanship. This knowledge was critical, for it not only spoke to their economic situation, but also reflected their understanding of their trade. Each tool was an investment, a piece of their identity as an artisan. Little by little, their application would begin to take shape, a formal representation of themselves as a craftsman. The next sections of the application often delved into the specifics of their training. Applicants would recount their apprenticeships, detailing the length of time spent learning under a master craftsman. This could vary widely in duration, from 3 to 7 years, depending on the complexity of the trade. They would describe the master's techniques, the trials faced, and the triumphs celebrated. Each moment spent under the watchful eye of a mentor added depth to their narrative, slowly weaving their experience into the fabric of guild tradition. Once the applicant finished detailing their training, the form would typically ask about their current place of work. Addressing this required another layer of mindfulness. They might reflect on the workshop, the sounds echoing within its walls, the soft thud of wood being cut, the gentle scraping of tools preparing surfaces. It all painted a vivid picture of their day-to-day life. The details mattered, for they would demonstrate the applicant's active participation in the craft and their commitment to the values upheld by the guild. Then came the question of references. An applicant might need 2 or 3 individuals who could vouch for their skills and character. This process, too, required a gentle touch. They would carefully select mentors, perhaps past employers or fellow artisans, individuals who could speak to their dedication and work ethic. The act of seeking references was a testament to community ties, reinforcing the notion that artisans were bound not only by their craft, but by a network of support that extended beyond mere transactions. As the application neared completion, there was another layer to consider: the guild's fees. Each guild had its own structure of payment, which could be a flat fee or a series of small contributions over time. The applicant would need to reflect on their financial situation, perhaps calculating their daily earnings to determine how best to manage the costs involved. The fee, while a barrier, also signified belonging. It was a humble gesture of commitment to the craft and the community. Upon completing the application, it would be essential to present it correctly. The parchment would need to be rolled carefully, tied with a simple string, and delivered to the guild hall. A visit to the guild hall was often a significant step, filled with a quiet anticipation. The hall itself, with its sturdy wooden doors and welcoming atmosphere, would embody the spirit of craftsmanship. The applicant would take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling the scent of aged wood and fresh paint, a reminder of the stories held within those walls. Once inside, they would approach the clerk, a person usually well-versed in the minutiae of guild procedures. The clerk would accept the application with a nod, often providing a polite acknowledgement that felt both reassuring and formal. The applicant would then step back, allowing the clerk to process their document, a wait that could feel eternal yet was filled with hope and potential. During this waiting period, applicants would often observe their surroundings. They might notice the tools displayed on the walls, the various wares created by guild members. Each item told a story, a narrative that intertwined with their own aspirations. This moment of reflection would encourage them to visualize their future within the guild, imagining themselves contributing to this legacy of craftsmanship. I see the same way. The clerk would eventually return with the application, often accompanied by a sense of gravity. They would either offer approval beginning the next phase of membership, or suggest further steps needed for acceptance. If more work was required, the applicant would take this in stride, understanding that patience and persistence were key attributes in the life of an artisan. With each step of this process, the applicant would grow more attuned to their surroundings. They would embrace the rhythm of preparation, submission, and waiting, each moment filled with the gentle hum of possibility. The process of guild membership was an unhurried journey, a series of small tasks that built upon one another, slowly and gently weaving together the fabric of their new identity. Yes. As the applicant awaited the clerk's return, they might find themselves contemplating the tools of their trade. The tools, meticulously crafted and carefully organized, would tell a tale of their own. There would be chisels, perhaps, their wooden handles smooth from years of use. Each chisel was a promise, a commitment to precision in the work that lay ahead. The applicant could imagine the distinct feel of each tool, how it would fit comfortably in their hand, guiding them in the creation of beautiful items. On the workbench, there might be a small, worn leather pouch filled with various bits and pieces, nails, screws, and perhaps a few pieces of fine sandpaper. The pouch itself, marked by the passage of time, contained the remnants of countless projects, each piece holding a memory of effort and craftsmanship. The applicant would mentally catalog these items, noting their importance in the daily routines of guild members. Crafting was not just about the final product, but also about the journey, the careful attention to detail, and the respect for materials. In this setting, the hours would drift by slowly. Time would move gently, marked by the rise and fall of conversation among other apprentices. There might be discussions about the best kinds of wood to use for different projects, or the intricacies of joining techniques, dovetails, mortise, and tenon joints. Each technique would be explained with reverence, each method embraced as a building block of the craft. The applicant would listen intently, absorbing knowledge shared freely by those who had walked this path before. As the clerk returned, the applicant would feel a quickening of the heart. They would take a deep breath, letting the anticipation settle gently within them. The clerk's expression would reveal much, and the applicant would observe the nuances, the slight nod or the furrowed brow. These small cues would guide the applicant's next steps. If the application needed more documentation, they would prepare to gather the necessary parchments with diligence. The process of gathering additional documents was meticulous and intentional. The applicant might need a letter of recommendation, a formal endorsement from a respected member of the guild. This letter would require careful wording, written on fine parchment with ink that flowed smoothly from a well-kept quill. The applicant would take their time, crafting the letter with precision, choosing each word to reflect their dedication and respect for the guild. Once the letter was ready, the next step would involve visiting a trusted mentor or seasoned artisan. This mentor would not only provide the endorsement, but also share insights into the guild's ethos. The applicant would sit across from them, perhaps at a sturdy oak table, polished from years of shared stories. The mentor would speak of the importance of etiquette, how to conduct oneself during guild meetings, and the significance of punctuality. Each piece of advice would serve as a thread in the tapestry of their new life. After securing the recommendation, the applicant would return to the guild hall. The hall would feel familiar now, each corner rich with history. They would find the clerk once again, presenting the newly acquired documents with a sense of accomplishment. The clerk would carefully examine each parchment, running fingers along the edges as if assessing the weight of commitment behind them. If all was in order, the clerk would provide a series of next steps. These steps would involve a small fee, the cost of guild membership, typically measured in silver coins. The applicant would retrieve the coins from a leather pouch, feeling the cool metal in their hands. Each coin would symbolize an investment in their future, a commitment to the craft they longed to embrace. Once the fee was settled, the clerk would guide them through the final stages of the application process. There would be forms to fill out, each requiring careful attention. The applicant would sit at a sturdy desk, quill in hand, and begin to fill in their details slowly. Name, trade, years of experience. The details flowed easily, but the applicant took their time, savoring the act of writing. The ink would glide smoothly across the parchment, each stroke a reflection of their resolve. Can't you see why? As they filled out the forms, they would be reminded of the guild's rituals. There were meetings held weekly, where members discussed projects, shared ideas, and collaborated on tasks. The applicant envisioned themselves sitting among these artisans, contributing to discussions and learning from the collective wisdom of the guild. Eventually, the forms would be completed. The applicant would hand them over to the clerk, who would place them in a well-worn leather folder, a repository of dreams and aspirations. This folder, filled with the hopes of many artisans, would be stored carefully until the day of reckoning arrived, the day when the applicant would be welcomed into the guild. In the days that followed, the applicant would find themselves in a state of quiet anticipation. They would spend their time in the workshop, practicing their craft, honing their skills with patience. Each evening, they would return home, reflecting on their progress, the rhythm of creation echoing in their mind. They would measure and cut, file and shape, all the while nurturing the dreams that danced in their heart. As the weeks passed, they might encounter fellow apprentices, each sharing a common goal. Conversations would flow easily, discussing techniques and tools, sharing tips on perfecting their craft. The applicant would feel a sense of camaraderie, knowing that they were not alone on this journey. They were all working toward the same goal, a place within the guild, a recognition of their efforts. And then, little by little, the time for the final decision would draw near. The applicant would receive an invitation to the guild's meeting, a gathering steeped in tradition and significance. This would be the moment of truth, where their application would be reviewed, their commitment evaluated. The applicant would dress neatly, choosing garments that reflected respect for the guild and its members. A simple tunic and well-fitted trousers, perhaps, all freshly cleaned and well cared for. Arriving at the meeting hall, the applicant would be enveloped in an atmosphere of history and craftsmanship. The walls adorned with the tools of the trade, certificates of mastery displayed prominently, a reminder of the dedication required to attain such respect. The gentle murmur of voices would surround them as they found their place among the gathered artisans, each one a testament to the richness of the guild's heritage. As the meeting commenced, the applicant would listen intently, absorbing the wisdom shared among the experienced members. They would hear stories of perseverance, of artisans who had once stood in their shoes, their hearts filled with hope and determination. In this space, the applicant would feel the weight of tradition, the legacy of those who had come before them. Each tale was a thread woven into the fabric of the guild, slowly and gently connecting them all. Oh, wow! As the meeting unfolded, the applicant would find themselves among the esteemed members of the guild, each one familiar with the nuances of their craft. The discussion would often revolve around the tools of the trade, essential instruments that define the art of their profession. Each artisan would share their preferences, speaking softly about the wood, the metal, and the leather that form the backbone of their daily work. They would mention the precise measurements of their tools, for instance, the length of a chisel handle or the width of a gouge, which could vary from city to city, but always adhered to certain traditional standards. Hey. The applicant would listen carefully as they spoke of the importance of maintaining these tools, the delicate balance between usage and upkeep. A well-honed blade, they would say, is a blade that has been cared for with love and attention. The artisans might pass around samples of their tools, allowing the applicant to feel the weight and texture, to understand the significance of balance and grip. In the corner of the meeting hall, a large wooden table would be adorned with jars of oil and cloths, each one dedicated to the maintenance of these essential instruments. The artisans would discuss the best oils to use, suggesting linseed oil for wood, and explaining how it preserves and enhances the grain. The applicant would nod along, absorbing this knowledge, knowing that such details are the very foundation of their future involvement in the guild. Away. As conversations meandered, the topic would shift to materials, the raw elements that would soon transform into crafted masterpieces. They would speak of the qualities of different woods, oak, cherry, and maple, each with its own characteristics, each suitable for a different kind of project. The applicant would learn about the importance of sourcing materials from local suppliers, supporting the community while ensuring freshness and quality. Nim, Shimne, Ain, Abo. The guild members would share stories of their favorite suppliers, each one a character in the tapestry of craftsmanship. They might mention the local market, held every Thursday, where vendors displayed their wares. You should arrive early, one member would advise gently, for the best selection. The applicant would envision a bustling scene, stalls filled with vibrant woods, glimmering metals, and the scent of leather, all ripe for the choosing. Isya, Dama, Inid, Netao, Isasya, Awiwa Diwo Bay. Dimnati, Inai, Wow, Ombo. Amidst the chatter, the topic of pricing would come up, a delicate dance of negotiation. The artisans would remind the applicants that while quality is paramount, one must also be mindful of their budget. They would discuss the average price of a board of oak, perhaps a solid 6-foot length, costing around 2 shillings, while cherry could fetch 3. It was essential to know these figures, they would say, for it would shape not only their craft, but their livelihood. Throughout this gathering, the rhythm of the meeting would maintain a gentle cadence, moving from tools to materials, and then to the logistics of crafting itself. The artisans would describe their workdays, which often began at dawn. Each would have their own routine, their own rituals, but all shared a dedication to the craft. Rising with the sun, they would prepare their workspaces, ensuring everything was tidy and ready for the day ahead. Whoa. The applicant would learn about the standard practices of workspace organization. Every tool has its place, every material its own, and a cluttered workspace can lead to costly mistakes. They would hear how chalk lines were drawn on the workbench, marking out measurements for their projects, ensuring precision and accuracy with each cut. As the meeting continued, the conversation would drift toward etiquette within the guild. Each member would emphasize the importance of respect. Respect for each other, for the craft, and for the clientele they served. They would discuss the need for punctuality, how arriving late to a meeting would be seen as a sign of disrespect. An artisan would share a tale of forgotten appointments, gently reminding the applicant of the value of a well-kept schedule. Ah, you Sidra. Within this world of craftsmanship, apprenticeships would also come into focus. The guild would take pride in nurturing new talent, and the applicant would hear about the typical duration of an apprenticeship, often lasting several years. 5 years, a seasoned member would say softly, is what it takes to truly learn the craft. The applicant would absorb this knowledge, understanding that patience and dedication would be crucial to their own journey. Jeez. During apprenticeships, the applicant would learn by doing, taking on increasingly complex tasks under the watchful eyes of their mentors. They would hear about the expectations placed upon them, the need to arrive with a willing heart and eager hands. Simple tasks, like sweeping the workshop or organizing materials, would lay the groundwork for more intricate projects down the line. As the meeting wound down, the topic would shift once more, this time touching on the importance of community. The members would speak of guild festivals, where artisans would showcase their work. These gatherings would not only celebrate craftsmanship, but also foster a sense of belonging. The applicant would imagine the vibrant displays, the laughter echoing under the canopies, and the sense of pride that would come from being part of such a community. The evening would draw to a close, the discussions gradually tapering off, replaced by a gentle camaraderie. Members would begin to share their experiences of the application process, recounting their own journeys to guild membership. Each story would resonate with the applicant, a reflective moment of shared understanding. As the last conversations faded, the applicant would feel a sense of calm wash over them, the weight of their decision beginning to settle. They would think of the paperwork that still awaited their attention, the forms to fill out, the letters of recommendation to gather. Little by little, they would come to understand that the journey to guild membership, with all its forms and procedures, was not merely a hurdle but a rite of passage, a necessary step toward becoming part of something greater. Yeah. With each new detail shared, the applicant would feel a growing sense of comfort, a gentle reassurance that they were not alone in this process. The guild was built on the foundation of shared experiences, of mentorship, and of community. They would leave the meeting hall feeling lighter, the shadows of doubt slowly dissipating, replaced by the warmth of hope and possibility. And so, as they prepared to step into this new chapter, they would carry with them the knowledge that, in time, they too would belong. The path ahead may be filled with paperwork and regulations, but it would also be paved with camaraderie, tradition, and the quiet pride of craftsmanship. Each step would lead them closer to their dreams, slowly and gently, guiding them into the embrace of their new community. No. As the hopeful applicant ventured further into the world of guild membership, they would soon discover the meticulous nature of the application process. Each step demanded care and attention, and the applicant would learn to embrace this rhythm of diligence. They would begin by gathering their tools, simple yet essential instruments for their trade. A blacksmith might require a sturdy hammer, an anvil, and a collection of tongs, while a weaver would need a loom, spools of thread, and perhaps a shuttle. Every tool carried its own story, its own weight. The hammer, for instance, might weigh around 2 pounds, designed for striking iron into shape. The anvil, A steadfast companion could weigh over 100 pounds, providing a solid surface for crafting. Each item would be stored with care, often in a designated area within the workshop, allowing for easy access and ensuring that the workspace remained organized. The applicant would need to consider the cost of these tools as well. Prices vary depending on quality and availability. A good hammer could cost anywhere from 3 to 10 shillings, while a loom could be a considerable investment, ranging from 10 to 20 shillings. The applicant would learn to budget wisely, accounting for the necessary expenditures while saving for the guild fees that lay ahead. Once equipped, the next phase of the journey would be to delve into the application form itself. This document, often crafted from parchment, was a formal declaration of intent requiring careful completion. The parchment, made from the skin of sheep or goats, provided a smooth surface for writing. It was essential to use ink made from carbon or iron gall, ensuring that the words would remain clear and legible. Filling out the application required patience. The applicant would first write their name at the top, followed by their trade and the name of their master, if applicable. Each line was to be filled meticulously, using a quill that had been properly prepared. The pointed end would be dipped into the ink, then drawn across the parchment with a gentle hand. Each stroke mattered, as any smudges or errors could lead to delays or, worse, rejection. Once the form was completed, it would be customary to seek out letters of recommendation from respected members of the community. These letters were often penned by other guild members or masters who were familiar with the applicant's skills and character. The process of gathering these letters was not to be taken lightly. It involved polite requests, perhaps a small visit to a local tavern or workshop, where the applicant would discuss their aspirations over a tankard of ale or a cup of tea. In these conversations, etiquette played a crucial role. The applicant would learn to listen intently, nodding when necessary, maintaining eye contact as a sign of respect and sincerity. The words of their endorsers would be transcribed onto fresh parchment, signed with a flourish. These letters, written in a flowing script, would then be folded and sealed with wax, creating an impression of authority and commitment. Wayne. With the application form and letters of recommendation in hand, the applicant would then prepare for the next step, submission. This often took place at the guild hall, a building that stood as a beacon of craftsmanship and community. The hall would typically have a large wooden door, and upon entering, the applicant would be greeted by the scent of aged wood and the soft murmur of voices. They would approach a guild officer, who would oversee the submission of applications. This officer, often an experienced craftsman, would take the time to review each document carefully. The applicant would stand, perhaps a little nervous, but gradually they would learn to relax their shoulders and breathe deeply. They would watch as the officer checked each detail against the guild's requirements, a calm and methodical process. The officer would examine the application form, ensuring that all information was complete. This included verifying the applicant's trade, years of experience, and the names of their recommenders. If everything was in order, the officer would nod, perhaps offering a few words of encouragement, a small gesture that could soothe the applicant's anxieties. Once approved, the applicant would be informed about the next stage, an interview. This would take place at a later date, allowing time for the guild to assess the applicant's skills further. They would be given a specific date and time, often written down in a ledger, ensuring that both the guild and the applicant could prepare adequately. In the days leading up to the interview, the applicant would focus on honing their craft. They might spend hours in the workshop, practicing their skills, each motion becoming more fluid, more confident. The rhythm of their work would echo the rhythm of their heart, steady and reassuring. On the day of the interview, they would rise early, ensuring they had ample time to prepare. They would dress in their best attire, often simple yet clean, reflecting the respect they had for the guild and the process. Each garment would be chosen with care, a sturdy tunic, perhaps, paired with trousers that allowed for ease of movement. Oh, as they made their way to the guild hall, they would recall the advice given by their mentors, to speak clearly and honestly during the interview, to showcase their knowledge and skills. They would arrive at the hall, their heart beating softly in their chest, and enter with a sense of purpose. Inside, they would be greeted by a panel of guild members, each representing a facet of the trade. The panel would sit at a long table, the surface polished and well-worn from years of discussions. The applicant would take a seat, feeling the weight of tradition settle around them. Questions would follow, each designed to gauge not only the applicant's skills, but also their character. They would be asked about their training, the tools they used, and their understanding of the craft. Slowly and gently, they would share their experiences, their passion for their trade shining through their words. After the interview, the panel would deliberate, considering the applicants' responses, the letters of recommendation, and their completed application. This process could take several days, a quiet time for the applicant, filled with anticipation. They would return to their workshop, perhaps feeling the weight of uncertainty, but also the flicker of hope. Boy. In time, they would learn the outcome of their application. If accepted, they would be welcomed into the guild. A community bound by shared purpose and respect. The journey, though filled with meticulous details and procedures, would culminate in a moment of belonging, a moment that would be cherished. And so, little by little, they would realize that the path to guild membership, with its forms and interviews, was not merely a bureaucratic process, but a journey filled with meaning and connection. Each document signed, each conversation held, was a stepping stone toward a future rich in tradition and craftsmanship. The echoes of their hard work would resonate through the walls of the guild hall, a testament to their dedication and perseverance. In the tranquil spaces of medieval towns, once an applicant was welcomed into a guild, they would begin to navigate the gentle rhythms of guild life. The first task was to procure the necessary tools for their trade. Artisans, depending on their craft, would require various instruments, each with its own purpose and significance. A blacksmith might gather hammers, tongs, and anvils, each tool carefully selected for its weight and balance. The sound of metal striking metal would echo softly, a comforting backdrop to the daily rituals of creation. The careful selection of tools would often take a week or longer, as artisans would weigh options, consider prices, and consult with fellow guild members. Prices for tools could range greatly. A simple hammer might cost a few pence, while a finely crafted anvil could require several shillings. This consideration of cost was critical, as many guilds had rules regarding the minimum quality of tools required to ensure the standard of work remained high. Once the tools were acquired, the next step involved the careful organization of the workspace. Each trade had unique requirements for storage and layout. A weaver would meticulously arrange their loom, ensuring that the warp threads were taut and evenly spaced. The shuttle, a slender tool used to weave the weft into the fabric, would be kept within easy reach. In contrast, a carpenter would have a different approach to their workspace. They would need to measure and cut wood with precision. The carpenter's measuring tape, often made from cloth or metal, would be unfurled, its markings clear and deliberate. Here, the measurements were crucial. A beam cut too short could lead to structural failures. Each cut would be marked with a pencil, followed by careful sawing, each stroke slow and deliberate, the wood shavings collecting like soft whispers on the workshop floor. As artisans worked, they would also adhere to a schedule, a rhythm that governed their days. Typically, work began at dawn, when the first light broke through the morning mist. The guild would often ring a bell to signal the start of the day, a gentle sound that called members to their tasks. The morning hours were often dedicated to the most intricate work, when the mind was fresh and the hands steady. And somehow, around midday, the artisans would gather for a simple meal, often consisting of bread and cheese, perhaps with a small portion of ale. This time was not merely for sustenance. It was a moment to share stories, to discuss techniques, and to forge bonds within the guild. Conversations would flow softly, filled with laughter and camaraderie. The warmth of community enveloped them, a comforting reminder of the support they had in their shared endeavors. After the meal, the afternoon would be spent in continued work. Each member would have their specific responsibilities, and these would be honored with a gentle respect. An apprentice, for example, might be tasked with preparing materials for the journeyman, ensuring that everything was in order. This preparation could include sharpening tools, gathering supplies, or even cleaning the workshop. The process of sharpening tools was a ritual in itself. It required focus and care, as a well-sharpened tool made all the difference in the world of craftsmanship. The stone would be wet, and the artisan would move the blade across its surface in smooth, deliberate strokes. The sound of metal gliding against stone was soft and soothing, a calming echo in the workshop. Throughout the day, artisans would also keep track of their materials. A textile worker, for instance, would take careful inventory of their threads, noting the colors and types, perhaps storing them in labeled drawers. Each color was significant, with some threads dyed using plants or insects, requiring time and skill to create. A guild member might spend hours preparing just a few yards of beautifully dyed fabric, a task filled with quiet concentration. Storage was another important aspect of guild life. Each member would have their designated spaces, often marked with their name or emblem, a small insignia that spoke to their trade. The guild hall would have shelves lined with tools, materials, and completed projects, each item telling a story of diligence and artistry. As the day progressed, the rhythm of work would ebb and flow. The afternoon light would shift, casting gentle shadows across the workshop. The artisans would occasionally pause to stretch their limbs, to breathe deeply, to settle their minds. This moment of quietude was essential, a time to reset, to prepare for the final hours of work. In the evenings, guild members would often gather to review one another's work. This practice was rooted in tradition, a way to uphold standards and encourage growth. Each piece would be examined with care, the craftsmanship appreciated, the details discussed with a gentle touch. A skilled master might offer advice on technique, while a newer member would listen intently, absorbing knowledge that would serve them well in their journey. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the guild would transition from work to leisure. The end of the day was marked by another gentle bell toll, signaling the closing of workshops and the gathering for supper. This meal brought the community together, filled with laughter and conversation, a warm refuge after a day of toil. Nisinawan. The supper table would be laden with simple fare, stews, bread, and whatever vegetables were in season. As they ate, guild members would share news from the town, stories of their families, and perhaps tales of their trade. This sharing of experiences wove a rich tapestry of connection, each story adding depth to their communal life. Chill. After supper, there was often time for reflection. An artisan might sit quietly in the warmth of the hearth, considering the day's work. They would think of the tools they had used, the materials they had shaped, the connections they had deepened. Each moment was a building block, a quiet step on the path to mastery. As the night deepened, the guild would settle into a gentle lull. Lanterns would flicker softly, casting a warm glow. Craftsmen would retire to their quarters, each with their own routines that gently lulled them into rest. Some would take a few moments to clean their tools, ensuring they were ready for the morning. Others might sit quietly, reflecting on the day's accomplishments, feeling a sense of peace wash over them. In this way, the mundane processes of guild life unfolded, step by slow step, each task infused with a sense of purpose, each interaction meaningful. There was a rhythm to it all, a soothing cadence that wrapped around the members, guiding them toward a shared destiny. Little by little, they found their places within the guild, woven together by the threads of tradition, craftsmanship, and community. As the evening settled gently over the guild, the artisans began to think of their tools. Each tool was a reflection of their craft, carefully stored in a designated space. The woodworkers would place their chisels, mallets, and saws in a well-worn wooden chest. The chest, made from sturdy oak, had a smooth finish, polished by years of use. Each tool was placed in its own compartment, nestled securely, ready to greet the dawn. No, the blacksmiths, with their strong hands, would carefully hang their hammers and tongs on iron hooks mounted on the stone wall. Each hook held a story, a memory of the forge. The rhythmic sound of metal, striking metal, echoed in their minds as they hung their tools, preparing for another day of creation. Little by little, they prepared their workspace, ensuring that everything was in its rightful place. The weavers, too, had their rituals. They would wind their threads, delicate and colorful, onto wooden spools. Each spool was labeled with the dye used, the source of the fiber, and its length. The weavers understood the importance of organization, for a tangled thread could lead to a tangled day. They would measure the lengths using a simple yardstick, marked in increments of 1, 2, and 3 yards. As they measured, they would breathe in the scent of the fibers, feeling connected to the materials that would soon become breathtaking tapestries. Once their tools were stored and their workspace prepared, the artisans would often take a moment to reflect on their materials. Wood, metal, and fabric lay before them, awaiting their touch. The woodworkers would examine their timber, running their hands over the grain, feeling the contours. They would choose the finest pieces, measuring each plank with precision, ensuring a perfect fit for their projects. The blacksmiths, with their calloused hands, would select the right iron, feeling its weight. They knew that the quality of the iron could affect the outcome of their work. They would assess its sturdiness, checking for any imperfections before placing it into the forge. Slowly and gently, they would plan their day's work, visualizing each step of the process, from heating to shaping to cooling. The The weavers, too, would consider their materials. They would choose their threads with care, selecting colors that would harmonize beautifully. As they worked, they would keep a notebook nearby, jotting down the quantities used and any adjustments made. This record would serve as a guide for future projects. Little by little, they built upon their knowledge, growing in skill and understanding. As the guild members settled into their evening routines, they would also attend to the business of guild life. Each week, there was a gathering, a time set aside for discussion and decision-making. The leaders of the guild would sit at a long oak table, polished smooth by years of deliberation. They would discuss the applications of new members, considering each submission with care. The application process was a meticulous affair, requiring a series of documents. Each aspiring member needed to submit a detailed account of their craft. They would outline their training, their experience, and their intentions within the guild. The guild would provide a parchment, pre-printed with guidelines, ensuring that all necessary information was included. It would include sections for name, age, craft, tools, and years of experience. Once submitted, the application would undergo careful scrutiny. A committee of seasoned artisans would review each document, often taking several meetings to discuss the merits of each application. They would consider the details, ensuring that the candidate's background aligned with the guild's values. It was a slow process, one that required patience and diligence, reflecting the very nature of craftsmanship. During these meetings, discussions would unfold in a calm and methodical manner. Each member of the committee would take turns speaking, sharing their thoughts. They would refer to the application, pointing out specific details, engaging in a gentle debate. This process fostered a sense of community, as they collectively worked toward a decision that would affect the future of the guild. Once a decision was reached, the candidate would be informed in a manner steeped in tradition. A letter would be crafted, written in flowing script, inviting them to join the guild. This letter would outline the expectations and responsibilities of membership, including participation in guild meetings, adherence to quality standards, and contributions to communal projects. Oh. The new member would be welcomed into a tapestry of history and skill, their journey just beginning. They would attend their first meeting, introduced by a mentor who would guide them through the customs and etiquette of guild life. Here, they would learn the importance of respect, patience, and collaboration. Little by little, they would integrate into this world, finding their rhythm among their fellow artisans. Pass in. As the night deepened, the guild members would often find solace in their routines. The artisans had a shared understanding of the need for rest, for creativity flourished in the quiet hours. They would settle into their beds, each in their own small chamber, often with the windows slightly ajar to let in the fresh night air. The sounds of the world outside would lull them, the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl providing a gentle backdrop. Before drifting off to sleep, many would take a moment to reflect on their day. They might think of the tools they had used, the materials they had shaped, and the connections they had deepened. Each thought was a quiet whisper, a soft reminder of the world they were a part of. They would replay the rhythmic motions of their craft in their minds, each moment a thread in the fabric of their lives. In this way, the cycle of guild life continued. Day after day, week after week, each member played their part, contributing to a greater whole, nurturing their crafts and one another. As they pursued their skills, they created not just objects, but also a legacy, a history woven through the ages. And so, the guild thrived, a steady heartbeat in the rhythm of life. The paperwork, the applications, the meetings, all were threads in a larger tapestry, each contributing to a story of craft, community, and perseverance. Little by little, they found their places within the guild, woven together by the threads of tradition, craftsmanship, and community. As the sun dipped beyond the horizon, casting a warm glow over the cobblestone streets, the guild members turned their attention to the tasks at hand. Each guild had its own rhythm, a soft pulse that guided their daily activities. The members, skilled artisans, and diligent apprentices would meticulously prepare for a new day. They would gather in their designated spaces, each workshop filled with tools that told their own stories. Woodworkers would begin by selecting their favorite types of timber, the scent of fresh pine or oak filling the air. They would measure the lengths of each piece carefully, using a simple wooden ruler, marked in inches and centimeters, and sometimes even in the traditional units of their region. A soft pencil would glide along the grain of the wood, marking where the saw should cut. The sounds of the saw, a gentle rasping, would echo in the background, a calming rhythm that accompanied their work. The leatherworkers, on the other hand, would lay out their tools, a sharp knife, a round awl, and perhaps a set of chisels. They would carefully place their hides on a smooth workbench, ensuring there were no creases or flaws. Each piece was examined under the light, the subtle variations in color and texture guiding their choices. They would measure each hide with a flexible tape measure, noting the dimensions needed for their next creation. A soft breath would escape their lips as they contemplated each cut, knowing that precision would yield the finest results. And then, there were the weavers, who might have been found at their looms, the rhythmic clacking of the wooden shuttle, weaving a soothing melody. They would choose their threads with care, selecting from a palette of soft, muted colors. Each strand would be measured carefully, often in yards, ensuring that the final tapestry would not only be beautiful, but also of the appropriate dimensions for the intended project. The threads, twined together, would create patterns that told stories of their own, each pass of the shuttle, a little piece of history. As the day progressed, members would turn their attention to the paperwork that accompanied their craft. The application forms for guild membership were not merely bureaucratic necessities. They were steeped in tradition and respect. Each form was a testament to the dedication required to join the community. A member would fill out the forms meticulously, using ink that glided smoothly across the parchment. The ink was often prepared in small pots, blending soot with gum arabic, allowing for a rich, dark finish that dried slowly but gave a satisfying sheen. Once completed, the forms would be submitted to a guild officer. This officer, often an elder with years of experience, would review the documents with a keen eye. They would examine the applicant's credentials, ensuring that all necessary details had been provided. The officer would often have a stack of parchment beside them, containing the applications of many hopeful craftsmen. Each page represented a dream, a desire to belong, and the officer's task was to sift through them with patience and care. The application process itself was rigorous. Applicants were often required to provide samples of their work, and these samples would be displayed in the guild hall. Each piece was measured and evaluated, ensuring it met the guild's standards. The process could take weeks, even months, as each member of the guild had a say in the approval of new artisans. Meetings would be held in the evenings, under the soft glow of candlelight. The flickering flames would cast gentle shadows as members gathered to discuss the merits of each applicant. During these meetings, etiquette was paramount. Members would take turns speaking, each voice respected and heard. The guild's rules dictated that all discussions be conducted in a calm manner, allowing for thoughtful deliberation. If an applicant's work was found lacking, members would provide constructive feedback, often accompanied by suggestions for improvement. Little by little, the applicant's craft would evolve, shaped by the gentle guidance of their peers. As the meetings drew to a close, the guild would take a moment to reflect. They would recall the various crafts represented within their walls: the blacksmiths, the potters, the bakers, and the painters. Each skill contributed to the rich tapestry of the community, intertwining their efforts like the threads of a fine fabric. Little by little, they understood that together, they created more than just products. They created a culture, a shared identity. Meanwhile, the storage of materials was another essential aspect of guild life. Workshops were often filled with neatly organized shelves, housing tools and supplies. Each shelf was labeled, the items arranged by size and functionality. The woodworkers would have their chisels aligned by length, while the leatherworkers would hang their tools, each in its own place, ensuring that when the time came to create, everything was within reach. Prices for materials were often discussed in hushed tones, as members would barter amongst themselves. A roll of fine linen, for instance, might be traded for a set of freshly tanned hides. The value was not only in the material itself, but in the relationships built through the exchange. The guild became a network, a web of trust and collaboration, each transaction a step towards mutual benefit. And there were the schedules, meticulous, rhythmic schedules. Each guild member was aware of their duties, the days of the week marked by specific tasks. Mondays might belong to maintenance, where tools were sharpened and workspaces cleaned. Tuesdays could see the focus shift towards production, the hum of activity filling the air. By Wednesday, members would gather to share techniques and new ideas, fostering a culture of learning. And every evening, as the sun set, the guild would often come together for a meal, a simple but nourishing affair. Bread, cheese, and perhaps a hearty stew would be shared among all. Little by little, the atmosphere would soften, laughter and stories weaving into the fabric of their community. It was a time to unwind, to connect, and to appreciate the contributions of each member. As the night deepened, they would return to their individual workshops, their hearts light and minds calm. The gentle sounds of the guild settling down would fill the air, the soft clatter of tools being put away, the rustle of parchment being tucked into drawers. Each member would prepare for the rest that awaited them, finding comfort in the knowledge that tomorrow would bring another day of crafting, another day of camaraderie. Slowly and gently, they would dim the lights, casting a soft glow over their workbenches. They would breathe in the scents of wood shavings, leather oils, and freshly baked bread, allowing these familiar aromas to envelop them. Little by little, they would lay down their heads, resting on pillows, letting the weight of the day drift away. As they closed their eyes, they would think of the guild, its rhythms, its traditions, and the intricate dance of daily life within its walls. The world beyond faded, the quiet hum of the guild wrapping around them like a warm blanket. With each breath, they would feel a sense of belonging, a part of something larger. Little by little, the echoes of the day would soften, replaced by the gentle lull of dreams waiting to unfold. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm amber glow over the guild, preparations for the next day began in earnest. Each member understood the importance of maintaining their tools and materials, ensuring that everything was in its rightful place for the tasks ahead. Slowly and gently, they would gather their tools, hammers, chisels, and awls, each resting in a designated spot on their workbenches. The wooden workbenches, worn smooth from years of dedicated labor, provided a sturdy base for their craftsmanship. Each tool, from the smallest needle to the heftiest mallet, held its own unique history. A hammer, perhaps used to forge metal into beautiful shapes, would sit patiently beside a set of chisels, each one waiting to carve intricate designs into wood. Little by little, the members would inspect their supplies. They would check their stocks of wood, leather, and metal, noting the quantities and sizes needed for the upcoming projects. A piece of oak, measuring precisely 6 feet by 2 feet, would be set aside for a particularly challenging piece of furniture. A length of leather, rich and supple, would be folded carefully, preparing for the crafting of shoes that would fit just right. With gentle hands, they would measure and cut, ensuring that every piece was perfect, every line straight. A ruler, perhaps an old wooden one, would serve as a guide, its markings worn yet clear. Each measurement taken would be recorded on a scrap of parchment, a quiet testament to the thoughtful planning that preceded their craft. Once the measurements were confirmed, these skilled artisans would take a moment to reflect on the materials they used. The price of oak had risen slightly that year, perhaps to 8 silver coins per foot. Meanwhile, the leather remained affordable, a mere 3 coins for a large hide. They would breathe in deeply, letting the scent of the wood and leather fill their lungs, grounding themselves in the simple act of creation. As twilight fell, the guild members would begin the meticulous task of organizing their workspaces. Every tool had a designated place, a specific spot that ensured efficiency and ease. The chisels would be nestled into their dedicated slots, while the hammers would hang from hooks, each one gleaming softly in the dim light. The guild's supply room, an essential component of their daily rhythm, would be checked for replenishments. Shelves lined with jars of nails, screws, and other small necessities stood like sentinels, ready to serve. Each jar, labeled in neat script, would reveal its contents at a glance, a calming sight that ensured nothing was forgotten. The members knew that a well-stocked supply room contributed to a seamless workflow, allowing creativity to flourish without interruption. Little by little, the members would gather at the central table, where parchment awaited their attention. This was where the guild's administrative duties came into play, a seemingly mundane but essential part of their existence. Application forms for new members, a process fraught with detail, would be laid out before them. Each form, a series of boxes and lines, required careful thought and consideration. The first box asked for the applicant's name, written in clear, flowing script. Below that, their trade would be inscribed: blacksmith, carpenter, or weaver, each title carrying its own legacy. The guild members would take turns discussing the merits of each applicant, their voices low and soothing, creating a rhythm that echoed through the room. Nay, as they deliberated, they would reference the guild's bylaws, a collection of rules that governed their society. These bylaws, penned on parchment that had yellowed with age, outlined the steps required for membership. A prospective member, once they had filled out the form, would need to find a sponsor from within the guild. This sponsor would vouch for the applicant's skills and character, ensuring that they were a suitable fit for the community. Inherently, Isamo, wow. Decide. The members would nod, understanding the gravity of this responsibility. The sponsor's role was essential, as it connected the applicant to the guild's rich history. It was a bridge built on trust and camaraderie. A gentle reminder echoed in their discussions, slowly and gently. We must ensure our guild remains strong. The application would then need to be reviewed by a committee, a small group dedicated to preserving the guild's standards. They would meet every Tuesday evening, a time set aside for careful consideration of all new applications. The committee would gather, armed with quills and ink, ready to document their findings. Each member of the committee knew their duty well, having spent years understanding the nuances of their craft and the personalities of their fellow artisans. 1. Should an applicant's form be accepted, a small fee would be required, typically amounting to 5 silver coins. This fee, a token of commitment, would ensure that the applicant had a genuine interest in joining the guild. It would also contribute to the shared resources of the community, supporting events and projects that benefited all members. Once the committee had made a decision, the news would be conveyed with care. If accepted, a letter would be crafted, written in elegant script. This letter would not only contain the joyous news, but also outline the expectations of membership. New members would be informed of meetings, the importance of attending guild functions, and the responsibilities of their craft. The rhythm of this process was almost hypnotic. The same steps, repeated season after season, year after year. Each application intertwined with the history of the guild, a tapestry woven from the threads of countless artisans. As night deepened, the guild members would find solace in the soft glow of lanterns. They would recount tales of those who had come before them, who had sat in the very same spots, filling out forms and becoming part of this vibrant community. They would share gentle laughter, their voices melding into a comforting hum. With the day's tasks completed, they would take a moment to reflect. They would sit quietly, allowing the peace of the guild to envelop them. The walls, sturdy and strong, had witnessed generations of artisans, each one adding their own story to the legacy of the guild. Slowly and gently, they would begin to wind down, feeling the weight of the day lift from their shoulders. The sounds of the guild settled into a calming rhythm. The soft creak of wood, the gentle flicker of flames, each sound a reminder of their shared experience. Little by little, they would find comfort in the knowledge that the next day would bring new opportunities, fresh materials, and the joy of creating alongside friends. With each breath, they would feel their bodies relax, their minds drifting into a tranquil state, lulled by the familiarity of their surroundings. And as the lanterns were snuffed out, one by one the members would close their eyes, ready to fall into a deep, restful slumber. The guild, with all its history and warmth, would cradle them through the night. Abay, kalimansasen, kemasai, elasti, esvi, yisis, elitiu. As the guild members nestled into their evening routines, a gentle calm spread through the air. The day had been filled with industrious activities, but now it was time to reflect on the more mundane aspects of guild life. Each member understood the importance of organization, the meticulous documentation that accompanied their craft. Joining a guild was not simply a matter of desire. It required a detailed journey through forms and applications. Picture, if you will, the process of applying for guild membership in the medieval period. Picture a sturdy wooden table, its surface worn smooth by years of use. Scattered across this table were sheets of parchment, each one bearing the intricate script of the guild's scribe. The ink, dark and rich, glistened under the soft glow of a flickering candle. The quill, dipped carefully into an inkwell, was a tool of precision. Each stroke required patience and care. The application process was designed to ensure that only the most dedicated artisans would be accepted. First, an aspiring member would obtain a blank application form, a simple piece of parchment. The guild would often charge a small fee, perhaps a few pence, to cover the cost of materials and the scribe's time. This fee, though modest, symbolized the commitment to the craft, a token of seriousness that resonated with the guild's values. Now, with the application form in hand, the candidate would return to their workspace, seeking a quiet corner to gather their thoughts. They would sit down, aligning their materials neatly before them. Perhaps a simple wooden desk with a few essential tools, a ruler for straight lines, a compass for neat circles, and of course the ever-important quill and ink. Each tool played a vital role in the process. Writing out the application required careful attention. The first section asked for personal details: the candidate's name, the date of birth, and their place of residence. The scribe would often remind applicants to write clearly and legibly, as the guild members would rely on this information. The clarity of the application reflected the candidate's character. Slowly and gently, they would form each letter, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. After the basic information, the next section required a description of the applicant's trade. Here, the aspiring member would explain their craft, detailing their skills and experience. If they were a weaver, they might describe the types of fabrics they specialized in, the techniques they had mastered, and the patterns they enjoyed creating. If they were a blacksmith, they might articulate the tools they crafted or the techniques they employed. Little by little, they would weave their narrative on the parchment, each sentence a step towards their goal. Nwenola, Inder, Bengandishay, Edio, Overshay. Once this section was complete, the candidate would move on to the next part of the form, a space dedicated to recommendations. The guild valued community and relationships. Therefore, candidates were required to secure the endorsement of 2 current members. This was no small task. It meant reaching out to respected artisans, perhaps inviting them for a simple meal. During this gathering, the applicant would share their aspirations, demonstrating their dedication and passion for the craft. Oh, unless, after securing recommendations, the candidate would return to the application form, carefully noting the names and trades of their endorsers. The guild would later contact these members to confirm their support. They knew that this was an essential step in the process. The thoughts of their endorsers echoed softly in their minds as they wrote, "I am worthy of this endeavor." Next, the application would require a small writing sample. This sample was intended to showcase the candidate's skill in their respective trade. If one were a painter, they might illustrate a small floral motif in the corner of the parchment. For a carpenter, a delicate drawing of a wooden joint might be crafted. Each candidate's unique flair emerged as they explored this final section of the form. The scribe would remind them to take their time, to breathe slowly, and to allow their creativity to flow onto the parchment. Ended. Once the application was filled, it was time to submit it to the guild's head, known as the master artisan. This would often involve a short journey. The candidate would dress in their finest attire, perhaps a simple tunic, clean and well-fitted. As they walked through the winding streets, each step brought anticipation. Upon arrival at the guild hall, they would find the entrance adorned with intricate carvings, a testament to the skilled hands that had shaped the wood. Inside, the air would be filled with the subtle scent of wood shavings and spices, a comforting embrace. The candidate would approach the master artisan's desk, a sturdy piece of oak, polished to a soft sheen. Placing the application before the master, they would wait with bated breath. The master artisan would take a moment, reading the parchment carefully. The gentle sound of parchment rustling filled the air as the master considered each detail. This was a time of quiet. The candidate's heart would beat steadily, each pulse a reminder of their hopes and dreams. If the application met with approval, the master would nod and offer a few words of encouragement. "Welcome to the guild," they would say softly, perhaps adding, "You have much to contribute." This was a moment of joy, a gentle validation of the candidate's efforts. But if there were concerns, the master would take the time to discuss them, guiding the candidate on how to improve their skills. They would offer constructive feedback, always with an encouraging tone, emphasizing that growth was part of the journey. Oh, once accepted, the new member would receive a small certificate, a beautifully crafted piece of parchment, embellished with the guild's seal. This certificate would serve as a tangible reminder of their hard work and dedication. They would carefully place it in a protective folder, cherishing the moment, a milestone in their craft. Within the guild, a member would soon find a rhythm. Each day would unfold with the dawn, bright and welcoming. The guild's daily schedule was predictable, comforting in its consistency. Morning hours were reserved for crafting, the sun filtering through the windows, casting warm light upon the workspaces. At mid-morning, the bell would ring, signaling a short break. Members would gather in the common area, sharing simple refreshments, slices of bread, perhaps cheese, and a warm cup of herbal tea. They would sit together, enjoying the camaraderie. The laughter would mingle with the clinking of cups, a soothing sound that resonated throughout the guild hall. After the break, the afternoon hours would be dedicated to skill refinement. Members would practice, share techniques, and improve their crafts. Each session would be a gentle reminder of the dedication required to excel. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the guild would gradually wind down, the sounds of work giving way to the soft hum of conversation. And as the evening approached, the members would gather once more, sharing stories of their day, recounting moments of triumph and learning. Slowly and gently, they would draw together as a community, the warmth of friendship wrapping around them like a familiar blanket. With a passing day, they would become more than artisans. They would become part of a legacy, a tapestry woven from shared experiences, laughter, and the quiet satisfaction of craftsmanship. Each application form, each scribbled note, every delicate line drawn on parchment, would serve as a reminder of their journey, a journey filled with small but significant moments. And so, as the guild members settled into their evening routine, the echoes of their day would fade softly into the background. The rhythm of their lives, marked by the steady heartbeat of the guild, would lull them into a state of tranquility, ready to embrace the night ahead. As we gently reflect on our exploration of medieval guild membership application forms, we recall the intricate tapestry of procedures, requirements, and the soft rustle of parchment that filled the air with a sense of formality and routine. We delved into the meticulous details of how aspiring craftsmen navigated the labyrinth of documentation and etiquette, weighing the balance between ambition and the burdensome weight of bureaucracy. Each step was a careful choreography, a slow and deliberate dance through time, as hopeful members sought their place in society, little by little. Now, as we settle into the quiet embrace of night. Imagine a softly lit room where shadows dance gently upon the walls and your body relaxes into the comfort of a warm bed. Let your breath slow and allow the peacefulness of this moment to wrap around you like a soft blanket. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a gentle comment. And remember to turn on loop so this soothing exploration can continue to drift through your thoughts.